Good morning. I will call this morning's meeting to order for May 16th. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. And on the consent agenda, I just want to make a note of a couple items of donations that we received. One was from Johnson Auto Repair for $39 for cash that they received for selling candy bars. So if you guys need, other than getting your cars fixed there, you stop by and pick up a candy bar and giving it to the K-9 program. Thank you very much to Johnson. West Central Minnesota EMS donated $250 towards the purchase of medical supplies. Then Johnson Auto Repair again donated $1,670 to purchase a new bite suit for training K-9s and handlers. And then the Minnesota Twins gave us a metal detector. They have about $5,000 that'll be used in the entrance of the Clay County Courthouse. And with that, I'd like to get the agenda approved.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve the agenda? Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next thing on the agenda is citizens to be heard. Is anybody here wants to speak to items that are not on the agenda? Did we get anything on the?
We did, Mr. Chair. We did we were working with a citizen this past week in regards to some tax questions and permits for demolition. We'll probably, most likely in the upcoming board meeting, have some additional feedback from that citizen.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll go on to approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
I'll move.
Can a motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approve of the minutes from May 2nd.
Move for approval.
We got a motion to approve the minutes,
Second.
and we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. With that, we move on to the regular agenda. The approval of a letter of agreement for preliminary needs survey pertaining to the West Central Regional Water District boundaries. Rocky Schneider will take care of that, I guess, so.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Having me back, I guess. So the West Central Regional Water District, we've been presenting here a number of times now, and I think there was past discussion about the right boundary. You know, we're going down about 2 townships in east-west in Clay County, and through those conversations and talking with Steve and then Commissioner Mojo at a meeting that we presented at with the Basin Commission, mentioned there was another city that may have interest in it as well along the Highway 10 corridor. And so kind of threw out an idea to Steve that maybe there's a need to sort of go out and do a preliminary needs survey. And so we put together a sort of a brief letter agreement that would allow us some flexibility to go out and have some of those preliminary phone calls probably start with a couple of the communities and see if they, bite, have interest. And if there is, we'd go out and present to their city councils, probably the Glendon Holly, corridor there. Then we also threw in there, I think, another task for 2 sort of more regional township meetings. So that, you don't have to go to each township, but if we could invite sort of a group together and see if there's interest. As we've heard on this district, the more we talk about it, the more, the next then keeps coming out of the woodwork. And so I think this will allow us to, really form the district in a proper boundary, or at least start the judicial process off on the right foot. I think it also helps the county too as we go through the judicial process, as people come out of the woodwork and ask, well, I didn't know about this, I want to be involved in it. At least this kind of does the due diligence on the front end as well on behalf of the county. And it tells your partners in the other counties too that there's not going to be drastic changes. And so I think that's really our goal, is that once we file, because I know our partners are anxious to file those judicial papers, they want to know that the district is, relatively firm on where it's at. We did just one brief update. We have worked with the other counties and cities to appoint members to that work group as well. And so we're still, I think there's another one last meeting today for final appointments, and we're looking at having a meeting, I think it was May 30th at 1:30 up in Halstead. And so I don't know if Steve, you've sent out anything yet, or just a placeholder? But
Yeah, we sent a placeholder. We didn't know the location yet, so.
yeah, it's going to be at the Halstead Telephone Company. I think that's what it's called. They have a good conference room up there, kind of a middle ground. And we have a draft agenda put together for that, and I think, making sure the right members are there and the right, ready to file. I want to make sure everybody's happy with where we're at and what the process is. And I know there's been some discussion here about the population. Just to show you what we put together, we did a little more calculation on the population of those two townships with the updated numbers, and Clay County's at about 20% right now, where that boundary's at. I know we had used the number 15% previously, so it's a little bit higher. And then you can see just obviously the cities on there are highlighted, but you can see all the little blue dots. That's where, residents are, potential customers that in the district. So obviously it makes efficiency's sake to go where those little clusters are. But if you go the next two townships down, for instance, through that Highway 10 corridor, it kind of doubles the population that Clay County has in the district. So it, starts to go up there, get up there pretty high. And then if there's interest further to the south, I think we'd discover that through the township meetings. We could kind of invite all the townships. I think we'd work with Steve and others to figure out who the right townships are to invite to that. But for the cities, we'd probably target the Glendon and Holly. I think the contract was for 10,000, and that's just really an up to amount that we'd work with Steve on. If we make initial phone calls and nobody's really interested, then, we can make that decision when that time comes too.
Well, I think that answers some of our questions as far as we were concerned about bringing in other people on this. But I'm concerned also you bring the whole county in there, the costs are gonna be distributed different than too, I take it, so.
Yeah, there's pros and cons having a bigger district too. I mean, that's the benefit of a regional water district is ultimately everybody benefits by having more people in because you share the common, infrastructure resources that you need. So that's a good thing. But yeah, there might be sensitivities with the other counties on, board membership and financial risk and those sort of things to get this process started. So I think that'd be a good topic. The right boundaries is a topic for that first meeting on the 30th.
Yeah. I was also reading over this letter on the first page, it says something about surveys going out and
Yes, thank you for that.
Clay County will be responsible for printing, mailing, and postage costs.
Yeah, so we have a couple ways to do that. In other districts that we formed on the North Dakota side, we end up sending out a mailer to, every residence, and that does get to be, it's very effective, but that's a costly way of doing it. What I'd probably work with Steve on is, is there a bill stuffer that we could do in some other mailing that the county does or publication that the county does to try to get that, we'd set up a URL and a QR code to really have people fill out that survey, and we want to get out to everybody possible, so we'll work with the county on the best way to do that. If you want to do a direct mailing, that's certainly an option, but that does get, adds to the cost.
Is that a mailing that just goes to Clay County or?
Yep. Just
Oh,
Clay
okay,
County.
excuse me, I thought that was going through the whole district here.
Nope, this would be just to assess the needs of Clay County, so give everybody a chance to fill out, and then as they hit submit on their surveys, we can kind of populate a map and see where there's interest level.
Very good, I misunderstood that.
Okay, yep.
Any other questions?
If I may. So Rocky, maybe this too far in the weeds, but is there, especially as we start going south, when you speed Highway 10, you start getting pretty close into Moorhead. Does there become a conflict at some point with more public service or those type things? How do you work that arrangement, or how do you work around that?
Yeah, it's not in the letter, but that's one of the things I've talked to Steve about too, is maybe this is a good time to have a call or a meeting with Moorhead Public Service, just so they're aware of what's going on. They are a potential partner at some point too, if you're looking for another water source or, accessing City of Fargo through Moorhead Public Service. They've had conversations as well. So if you go further south, you get, further away from the primary water source that we're looking at right now. Is there other sources that are an option as you get further south too, and Moorhead Public Service is certainly one of those. But I think at the very least, you'd want to have those conversations so there's no, surprise moment there.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Rocky, have all of the potential future water sources been reviewed and recognized?
No, that'll be a big, depending on what the district looks like at the end for this sort of our, I don't have the pipelines on here, but those, if you remember the map of where the initial pipelines are, there's enough water from East Central that is able to serve those. I think as we expand more and depending on, if you get one of these cities involved, that boosts up the numbers. Then we'd start looking at a additional water source. For instance, you could pipe, if it was everybody along Highway 10 wanted to do that, you could pipe right out of, Moorhead Public Service for just a pure example, hypothetical, and you wouldn't have to connect to the other pipe even at that point. So I think we'd look at all those. I think that's part of the judicial study process too. Once the courts hire an engineering firm to do that study, we'd evaluate all those.
Okay, so today we're looking for this approval of the letter of agreement.
Yes.
Also have any wishes? Commission?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the letter of agreement for the preliminary needs survey pertaining to the water district boundaries.
And I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the letter of agreement for preliminary needs survey. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll be happy to come back whenever you need me.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Okay, next thing we got the Sheriff's Office, request approval to purchase in-car computers.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having us this morning.
Whole gang with you here. Oh,
Well, when you talk about computers and cameras and things like that, I thought
I
it would
see.
be important to have our IT guy in here as well.
that man there.
He's a subject matter expert when it comes to that, not me. We are looking to replace our current tablets that we have in our current squad cars. We purchased those back in 2018. As a matter of fact, I think I was here April of 2018 to upgrade those previous computers. Now I'm back 5 years later to upgrade these computers. We're looking to go with laptops instead of tablets in hopes that we are able to use those laptops, remove them from the car for the deputies that have them, and they're able to bring them into the office and use them as their desktop computer as well. Hoping to do that, and it would be a savings in the long run of New World licensing. If Rory's able to work his magic and make sure that our mobile and our RMS system and things like that is able to work in our laptop, so it's able to work in our office, we'd be able to save on New World licensing. So hopefully Rory's able to work through that. We are currently seeing some maintenance issues with our current tablets where some of them are going down and they have to be sent in for repair. When those are sent in for repair, it does get to be a little bit of a hassle for the deputies that are without that tablet for some period of time. And also part of this request is we're adding an additional docking station, and we'd be putting that docking station into our emergency management pickup. As we saw this past winter, some deputies took that emergency management pickup out during winter weather events, and they were not able to have their in-car computer, GPS, and things like that, which is something that is kind of needed during some of those winter weather events as well. As you can see, we do have a total of $101,192 available in internal service. Funds required for the purchase and install is $74,513.40, which would be another $26,678.60 going back into internal service. I was hoping to have, I know Lieutenant Schroeder is busy, I was hoping to have him here as well to talk about some of the maintenance issues that we've been having, but we would anticipate ordering these directly after board approval.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Sheriff, does this include maybe backup laptop or two that when there are maintenance issues, your deputies aren't having to either share or go without?
Working with IT, they were going to order GTAC laptop for themselves, and that would be one that we'd be able to use as a backup.
Good.
I was just looking at the cost for each computer and installation is about 4,100, something like that.
Yeah, roughly about that, to include the docking station as well.
Well, that's a part of the dock, excuse me.
That's part of the docking station as well, yep.
Oh.
And actually, these laptops are less expensive than the tablets that we're currently operating by a couple $1,000.
All right. Thank you.
This, just an observation, this is as essential as portable radios or holsters in this day and age. I spent a lot of time in the last week with the state emergency broadcast, or emergency network, talking about systems and talking about where we're going, next generation 911. And it's totally legitimate here that we need to keep these things updated. It's field conditions, it's difficult to keep, have an extended life on any of these. And this looks like, from my perspective, it looks like a good use of funds. And it's in the internal service fund, so it's within the boundaries there. So this is something I'm very supportive of.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the request.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the request. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing you got is request approval to purchase, to purchase and update in-car cameras and body-worn cameras for Sheriff's Office.
Again, about 5 years ago, I was in here for in-car cameras as well. Again, they're basically another computer. And about 3 years ago, it was our body-worn cameras. We were new into the body-worn camera adventure at the time, so we were kind of wondering how long these were going to last. We're seeing some issues with them not lasting the entire shift. Seeing some battery issues. We don't have a lot of spares for staff either. As far as our in-car cameras, whenever the hard drive goes down, we have to take that hard drive out of the car and then send it into WatchGuard for service. We're finding WatchGuard sometimes is a little difficult for servicing, a little difficult for the customer service side for Lieutenant Schroeder to get a hold of. We're looking to move from WatchGuard systems to a GTAC system. That was the lowest price point that we could find was GTAC over WatchGuard. Axon did not even return our emails. We did reach out to Chief Todd over in Detroit Lakes, who's currently operating with GTAC in-car cameras and body cams. She's been very positive remarks regarding those and the customer service. GTAC is located in Bloomington, Minnesota, so they are close for any type of service that we may need, or if we have some type of issue in regards to cloud service. We would be going away from our internal server. I know that I would prefer an internal server. It would be, I think, a lot easier and cheaper. But when we started looking at other places, they're even charging subscription fees for servers now. We did get a quote from WatchGuard, and they're charging about $20,000 a year for servers, which is kind of crazy in my opinion when you have it internally and you have an IT department that can handle it themselves. With cloud service, it does have a potential of clearing up some time for one of Rory's staff members who has been taking care of a lot of the server issues for us and things of that nature. The one thing we'll have to bear in mind with this is that when it comes to budget time, we'll have to add about $25,902 to the budget for the cloud service for the next 5 years. And that's something that we would have to make sure that we budget for. There are funds available in internal service for the initial startup fee, with an additional $6,000 if we could take that out of the camera internal service side of it. So the initial startup fee is $178,983. We have $172,169 in internal service, so we would be looking for an additional $6,731.83. And I would propose that the additional funds come from the $26,678.60 that was remaining in internal service for the in-car computer purchase.
How much money do we put in internal service fund every year?
Boy, that's Lori's magic numbers, and I don't know what Lori exactly does with that.
Because it looks like you're going down pretty low with that.
We are paying for the cloud service. If we did not have to add that additional $25,000 on that cloud service, then we'd be right in there.
Very good, okay. Yeah,
Sheriff, with the cloud services opposed to our own servers, is there a procedure that is fairly evident where we're going to be able to retrieve these, copy them, redact them, do all the stuff we got to do with the requirements for the courts and with the media on data practices? I know that was always a huge concern in getting the body cameras in, is that there's that expense. Are we able to meet that?
Yep, redaction is included into this as well. And then I think when it comes down to a sharing with county attorney or whomever we have to share with, it's just sending an email link to them and they're able to open it up rather quickly. With the cloud service, it's a lot easier to do it that way.
What's the warranty on these things? How many years?
Josh, I think it's a 5-year warranty, is that correct? 5-year warranty. And that's where we're at currently with our WatchGuard system. It's a 5-year warranty. We're coming up to that warranty being done.
Well, in-state, and you're having problems with WatchGuard, that's pretty good reason to change it. When the warranty's running out, it's time to move on and find somebody who can service.
Yeah, and when we remove a hard drive from the car, we don't take the car out of service. The deputy ends up working without a camera, and we all know right now that it's very important to have that camera in the car. This quote does include a camera for our spare squad as well. Our spare squad does not have a camera in it, so it does include a camera for that.
I'd move to approve this purchase of the new cameras, body cameras and dash mounted cameras, and the additional expense for storage on the cloud.
Second.
okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the purchase of the cameras. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
looks like you're not gonna leave yet, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, request the approval of the hire of full-time deputy position.
Last week, we recently had a deputy resign. He was a 16-year veteran with the department, looking to approve or replace him in his position. I would also respectfully request advertising the hiring up to step 5 or higher if approved, and working with our county administrator. We're definitely in an interesting spot right now in law enforcement where there's just not enough people going into it. Currently, Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong with this, currently there's about 1,400 job openings across the state of Minnesota for law enforcement, and there's just not that many people going into it anymore. So we have to try and do something to attract and make ourselves a little bit more competitive than what we are. There's agencies in the metro area, some of the suburb agencies that are offering a lot more than we are currently. They're offering to front load sick time, vacation times. They're doing lateral transfers. They're doing hiring bonuses. They're doing all different kinds of stuff right now to try and attract staff members. So even if we hired somebody at step 5, a new person at step 5, we would still have, we'd still be $30,000 in the plus into our budget for 2023. Therefore, I'd respectfully request that to try and make it to where we're a little bit more competitive and attract some applications. We've had an opening within our department since June of last year that we have not been able to fill yet.
Questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So nobody's on the list right now?
We have no list. We currently have a hiring process out there that we just started last week, but we don't have any type of a list.
I'll give a little commercial real quick for anybody that's listening and is trying to consider a career in law enforcement. Knowing now what I know, God, 55 years ago when I got out of college, I would have driven north and come to this community and joined this department, or a department in this community, instead of taking the course I took. And it's the same with the Metro. The quality of life here, the professionalism of the departments, the equipment, the training opportunities, everything is right here in this region. And this would be a great job, and to incentivize it by replacement up to step 5 on grade 18 is a good incentive. And somebody out there, when they hit 20 or 25 years or whatever it takes, and they look backward, be glad they made a good move to come to work for the Clay County SO. So I recommend approval of this with the replacement up to step 5 on grade 18.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve the request to hire,
Second.
and we got a second on it. I just have a question, and I think I asked it the last time you requested to hire. How many people do we have from step 1 through 4 working here?
I believe we don't have a lot in step 1 through 4, 2 to 3 maybe. Other than that, they're all at that step 5 or higher. Darren, I think, would be able to grab that quickly, but I think when we looked last time, it wasn't that many people.
Okay. I was just wondering how it affects people who are already on. I mean, if we go to step 5, how many people it would affect?
I know I've discussed this with the current union head, so to speak, within our agency. And he's addressed it with the deputies and said, hey, we're in a weird time now. And if they hire somebody higher than what you're at, you just have to accept that. You accepted this position knowing what you were getting at that time. So let's just do what they have to do to get people hired. So he was in support of this as well. And I know that Lieutenant Schroeder is also working with Mark Sloan to come up with some type of recruitment video similar to what they did with the correctional center.
Okay? Okay, we got a motion to approve the hiring. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll move into the request to approve to create a DMV Assistant Supervisor position. Lori and Chelsea.
Morning.
Good morning.
What we're looking to do is we're looking to create an assistant motor vehicle supervisor. We did bring this position to pick last week, I believe, or a week before. And if you've ever been out to motor vehicle recently, you've seen how busy Chelsea is. And she's being pulled in all directions, whether it be questions or training or all sorts of different things, reporting. So we're just looking to get an assistant approved to take care of some of the training issues. Training isn't just a 1 or 2 day thing. It lasts for months to get fully trained. And there would also be somebody to look to when Chelsea's gone. As you know, we're in the process of designing and developing a new DMV, and so that's going to take some time away from Chelsea as well. And so we're just looking to approve that. The cost would be $5,000 for this year, because we do have somebody retiring with a payout, but in the future years, there wouldn't be any additional cost because of those retirements.
Okay. Any questions for Lori or Jason?
Mr. Chair, we both were part of that PIC committee discussion, and I think I said to Chelsea, I can't imagine how many steps in a day you put in. It wasn't too long ago where we were being bombarded with some concerns from citizens on DMV service, and you hit that right on and have dealt with it, and your crew just does a fantastic job. And I have been there to have some service on DMV issues, and I think you multitask more than anyone I've ever seen. You are constantly addressing all the window needs, so thank you for what you do, but I do believe we do need to get you some help in that capacity. That's not healthy to have to multitask as many things as you do, so very happy to support this position.
Is that a motion?
Wait for the,
Oh, excuse me.
Do we need a backfill on this?
This would not be an additional position. We've got somebody retiring in July, and so we'll be hiring a new position for that position.
Okay. I'll make a motion as we approve this hire for DMV Assistant Supervisor position.
second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the position. Any additional? All in favor?
Aye.
I guess now that we approved this position, we can continue with the plans on the new building. We already got the
Exactly.
office established, so,
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
okay. Okay, our budget update for year-to-date.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Thanks for allowing us to be here this morning. You should have a packet on your desk this morning. We're going to cover a couple different areas. We're going to review 2022, both in the revenue and expense documents, at least highlight some of the maybe areas that are either higher or lower than anticipated. We'll look at our fund balance at the end of 2022. We'll also then take a look at where we are on the revenue and expense documents through April. Our focus mostly will be in the expense section, as we know that our revenues generally are 6 weeks to 3 months behind. And so that won't give us a real clear picture, but address some expenses. And then also, as we generally do, provide an update on the sales tax information. And so, as I mentioned, we have a summary of our revenue and expense document. I'm going to touch on just a few of the, start out on the revenue side. I highlighted a few of the different areas. One of the first areas that I think probably most significant that impacts a lot of our budget and our fund balance would be on the treasurer's piece. You see a decrease of revenue of 1,176%. What that is doing is recognizing a market value adjustment on paper of $4.1 million. And so I don't know if Lori, if you have any.
Yeah, so as part of our financial statements, we're required to recognize any market value adjustments in the value of our investments, which this year happened to be 4.1 million. Typically, it's just a few $100,000 here or there, but because of the interest rate increase, then the value of our investments. But again, it's just on paper. And so down the road, when we cash them in, there won't be any effect.
Okay. It's 4.1 million that we're concerned about. That's, all right.
The next area that we'd touch on is in elections. We saw an increase of 22,675%. Lori's office received grants to purchase Omni ballot systems there, and so that's was the cause of that. Emergency management, shifting down to the middle of the page, saw a 2,429% increase. Again, that was ARPA funded related. The next item would be a couple of spots down in extension. The recorder's equipment was purchased through this line item. Shifting down to the bottom of the page, an unallocated general had about 104% increase. Again, we saw a $463,000 land sale. We saw MCIT dividend larger than was anticipated. And we had increase collection of taxes and also an increase of in workman's comp payments there. When you look at revenues because of the decrease that we saw in the market value adjustment, we did see a decrease of a budgeted amount for 2022 is $30,587,189. Was offset a little bit by the unallocated general, but the actual was $28,793,779. Difference of $1,793 for $793,410. Oofta. And so that was the adjustment there. Any questions on this front page? Or anything that we did talk about or didn't talk about?
So of that 1,793,000, you still have to take into consideration that paper adjustment of the, so that's really skewed,
It is,
really skewed,
very skewed, yes.
to the tune of $2 million skewed. Okay, just,
Got that settled.
All right, if we go to the second page of the addressing the revenues, road and bridge, I think if you recall, coming out of COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty as far as what funding could potentially be, whether that's through the sales tax, whether that's a gas tax, whether that's parts, through how we receive our funding. Highway tracking, I worked with Justin in kind of anticipating potentially lower revenues. As you can see, we received higher revenues there, so we had an increase of 117% total within the highway or road and bridge. Social services had higher than anticipated revenues, so we saw 106% increase there. The juvenile center also saw higher than expected revenues of 1.6 with a $1.6 million or 127% increase. Public health, or excuse me, not public health, solid waste, we had an increase of 261%, but again, a majority of that came from the money that we received from the state. When you look at the other revenues, we were pretty much spot on. And then lastly, the Family Service Center was at about 109%. We had an increase, if you recall, last year we made an adjustment to the leases within that facility, and so that additional cost per square foot provided us an increase there. Anybody have any questions in regards to this side of the revenues?
So far, it looks to me like we're doing okay.
Yeah, so far we're doing well. I'll take a look, if you want to flip back to that first page, we'll kind of highlight a few of the different expenses that were a little out of line of where we thought they were going to be. Public defenders, we saw some additional costs there. Often that's when you see the judges in a case will order additional professionals or testing, that we saw more increases there, 136% of the budget. County administration, I did go to Hawaii last year. Just kidding. We had
We caught that.
if you recall, we had a position that we funded through ARPA that came through that budget, and so that was at 117%. The internal accounting, in talking with Lori, what happened here was 167% increase, but it actually, how it was billed out, captured parts of 2 separate years, and so it averaged out to about $85,000 there, and so not a concern. The next item is elections. We had elections last year, and so as we've talked about, Lori Saves provides funding into, I guess, voting into elections every year, and then it costs out on election years, so that was 138%. Our next area is the surveyor. If you recall, we have AE2S does our surveying for us. This board made the determination last year that they would use some additional compliance fees from the recorder's office, and so that's the difference of the $143,000. Grounds and buildings, we had expenses of additional 105%, and some of that has to do with our winter storms that we had last year. The next item is planning and zoning. It was 122%. We had some riparian aid that was provided through our funding source that was not anticipated in the budget. As you're aware, we have a riparian aid fund, so it wasn't the new dollars that were being, it was just from our riparian aid funds. The next item was a medical examiner. Unfortunately, that probably speaks for itself. We had more deaths than anticipated, so that was 115%. Juvenile detention was at 114%. Again, that difference is they offer a trauma therapy that's not included within the bed purchase. And there are also some medication and doctor's appointments costs for those who don't have, they don't have medical insurance, private insurance. Emergency management is the next item at 710%. Again, that's where our ARPA money shows up. We also, let's see, and the next item would be our general unallocated. Again, 239%, if you recall, at the end of last year. We had some, through MCC JPA partnership, we had a number of closings that were going to happen at the end of the year, and so we did a fund transfer to make sure that those closings could take place. So that's where that difference is. From an overall picture, we had expenses of $30,887,188. Anticipated the expenses year to date were $31,558 and $588,964 with a deficit of $701,776. From an adjustment standpoint, if you look at the ARPA funds, just from emergency management, that pretty much captures that amount. So as you said, Mr. Chair, the county was in a good financial position last year. Any questions? To further address that, the next document is the fund balance comparison. As we have discussed in the general fund balance, we had a market value adjustment there that led to a $2,795,185 change downward. Road and Bridge had $1,276,312 decrease. But again, not necessarily a current concern. It has more to do with the timing of the fundings received and when bills are paid. That area is solid. Our social services, we just saw an increase in revenues that led to a $1,497,885 increase. Our building fund, we put $50,000 a year roughly away there. We were able to do a lot of our work that we did throughout the county through our bond, and so we were able to not utilize that fund too much, and so that's where we are there. Our internal service, it saw an increase of $1,160,117. But I think a point of note is last year we didn't have any significant purchases that came through from Road and Bridge specifically, and so that certainly is connected to that impact. The next four items that we have are considered enterprise funds. While they're in part of our budget packet, they're not part of our levy. And so when we look at public health did see a increase in revenues last year, and so there was an increase of $1,082,017. Our solid waste department had an increase of revenues, but also a decrease in expenses. And so they were really in a solid spot. The difference that you see there of $7,110,693 is attributed to the state grant dollars that we received for the Resource Recovery Center, and so we are in a good position there. Family Service Center, we just saw a small decrease, $53,896. If you recall, we had a gap in an opening as we had one agency move out, and we had to fit up the area for social services. This board also approved a lower rate for the dental office while they moved their expansion, moving to expand, and so that led to that small decrease. And lastly, juvenile detention showed an overall cost of $546,150. You're probably saying, hey, you just told us we made $1.2 million. If you recall, part of the bed purchasing plan that we have with our members is that if there's revenues over expenditures, they then utilize some of those dollars for the future year, and so that offsets some of those costs. With that, I'd yield for any questions on the fund balance.
Oh, and the internal service fund, is the sheriff's office in a different section, or?
No, the sheriff is part of that. And they put in $300,000 a year at this point.
Okay, 'cause I know we took some out of there today,
Right, but all departments put into the internal service fund, and I keep a separate cash balance for each department.
Go ahead.
Just a question, back to social services, that's quite a increase. Is that just grants they've been getting, or at 1.4?
That would mostly be grants. Right. A little bit of tax increase too.
Okay. Is that, I'm just kind of curious, and it's a big department, is that, has that been on that trajectory for a while on grants, or is it?
They've been pretty stable overall. It's their expenditures that fluctuate mostly in some of the out-of-home placement issues, because those things can take a toll. One person can be a huge expense, so it's generally expenses that fluctuate.
All right, if there's no other questions with the fund balance, just kind of take a look at our 2023 budgets. Again, the focus really here is going to be the expense piece. As I mentioned, generally we fall a little behind in collections of the revenues. I will highlight, again, our emergency management was a 33,000% increase. That does have ARPA. That's, I guess, the only place that I anticipate touching. I think, we're 33% through our year. If you look down at the bottom for our revenues of where we are projected at this point, we're 38%. In reviewing these with Ms. Johnson, we didn't see any concerns from a revenue standpoint. Highlighting the expenses, again, if you take a look, we also really didn't feel like there was anything that was of great concern here. Again, emergency management spending, there's some ARPA dollars. But from the 33% pace, whether or not some of what we do is paid a couple times per year, and so you might see a larger increase. Some of those are paid, some of our one-time allocations would then show 100%. And so, again, from an expense standpoint, both, I guess, on the front, or here on the front side, we feel we're in a very good position. Are there any questions on any of those areas? All right, if we go to the second page, just highlighting a couple different areas. I think highway administration is right around 42%. In reviewing that with Ms. Johnson, that's 100% related to insurance. And otherwise, I think we're pretty much in that one-time or two-time-a-year payment area, or we're in that range to where we feel comfortable with where we should be, subject to where we are this year. Any questions?
You must be doing good.
All right, the last item, again, that we have is, as we start preparing for the 2024 budget, we always like to kind of take a look at where we are from a sales tax projection. As we've talked, last year was our first year that we did not need to utilize any additional levy dollars for our repayment of our half-cent, because of our half-cent sales tax for the law enforcement center and correctional facility. We have had the last 2 months, you may know, we've had a decrease for the first time from where we had been previously in the last 2 years. And so right now we've collected $1,706,363,032. And so we'll continue to monitor that. I think just from a board's perspective, we are anticipating our payment is about $3.7 million in total. And so if you take this out throughout the year, we would still have enough dollars to fund that repayment through the sales tax. Just so the board's aware, we also have additional fundings that we've collected of roughly about $666,000 that is in an account should we need to address anything in the short term. Again, if you recall, we at one point, this board had determined to put $50,000 a year for the repayment of this, you got up to $400,000. We were able to back off that from the levy standpoint. And we also, from the wind tax of roughly 150, we were able to shift that back also to our regular budget.
So how far off are we paying off? What was that contract?
So we had a 20-year, it's a 20-year half-cent sales tax, and so we made our first payment we took it off here, 18,
I think so.
so I
30.
think 38 would be our last payment.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think the original bond between those projects was about $53 million. And then, when you look at the 20-year life of that, when you add the interest on it, I think our total financial commitment to that project would be upwards of around $80 million. That would be our total cost into the project. And if you take a look at these last 2 years and you average them at about a $4 million collection and you take that times 20 years, you're at $80 million. So we're right on track as far as I can tell that by the time that the final payment is there, we'll have enough money to cover it just with the sales tax.
Correct.
Before, we had some other issues that we were planning on using to help offset that. But I wanted to say that because there's some people who might be thinking that because these collections are so high, that we're going to be able to sunset this early. And I don't believe that's going to happen.
It's a possibility, but at the very end, just
Yeah.
a year or two at max.
Right.
Even at a, modest inflationary rate per year, so.
Okay. Any other comments? Very good.
So, Mr. Chair, Commission will continue to keep the board updated on the payments as they come in throughout the year. And if there's any additional concerns, we'll bring that forward. And so with that really concludes what we had as far as present today, unless there are some additional questions from the commission.
All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to the budget timeline.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Again, each May, we come forward with a proposed budget timeline for your approval. So we are able to meet our statutory guidelines, both in setting the preliminary levy and the adoption of our levy. As you can see, we are looking to send out packets to our departments by the 26th. Our partners that receive funds from the community will also be receiving a letter at that time. The deadline for those budgets and those requests will be to come back to the auditor's office by June 16th. Ms. Johnson will then compile those and move those forward to my office, and we'll begin individual budget discussions with each department. After that's completed, those budget presentations will become coming before this board in both July and August, with the understanding that we need to set our preliminary levy by August 1st per statute. Last couple of years, we've tried to come before the commission 2 weeks prior to that deadline. So while we generally hope that we're communicating effectively throughout the process, it allows for any concerns to be brought up last minute and adjusted. And so we would be looking to set the preliminary levy September 19th of this year. Again, we'll be looking at our Truth and Taxation meeting December 12th at a 6 p.m. hearing, and then we'll be looking for the adoption of the final levy and the 2024 budget on the week after, on December 19th. With that, I'd yield for any questions.
Questions? Okay. Thank you for that info.
I think the timeline looks good.
Pardon? Oh, we need a motion on it? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the timeline as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion, second, to approve the timeline for the budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. All right. And with that, we'll move into says Police Week, but I think we should probably make it Police Year. I mean, they should be honored all year long for all the work they do, so. But I guess we will stick with Police Week this week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We just wanted to highlight our appreciation for the efforts of all law enforcement, but specifically this week of National Police Week of the Women and Men in Blue. And so I believe that you have a proclamation before you for your consideration. And so I'll turn it back to the commission.
Yes, in that proclamation, I handed out a new one before the meeting, so use that one, and not the one that's on the back of the agenda item. And we'll take turns in reading the proclamation. Jenny, will you start us out, please?
Thank you. I might also add that I think not only the men and women in blue, but specifically brown, probably. So whereas in 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Day, and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, National Police Week pays special recognition to those law enforcement officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others, and
Whereas law enforcement officers within Clay County stand watch over our citizens, selfishly risking their lives to protect individuals, families, neighborhoods, and property against crimes, and
Monday, May 15th, 2023, is observed nationally as Peace Officer Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And
Whereas the law enforcement officers within Clay County, past and present, who, by their own faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered dedicated service to the community.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Clay County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim May 14th to the 20th, 2023 as National Police Week. Within Clay County, and hereby publicly salute the service of the law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. Throughout Clay County, we urge and encourage all citizens to take time to appreciate our public safety officers and honor all peace officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Adopted on the 16th day of May, 2023.
Mr. Chair, I move the proclamation.
second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to approve the proclamation for National Police Week. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much to the police officers, or sheriffs. Okay, with that, we'll go into committee reports. Paul, you gonna start us off this week?
yes. So just a couple things for me this week. On Wednesday, May 10th, we had our Cass Clay Food Commission meeting in the Fargo City Chambers. Reporting was given, presentations were given. A couple of note, we had through Fargo Cass Public Health, a presentation regarding social determinants of health. And I guess if I'll say in a couple of short words, the fact that food is essential for people. And if people don't have accessibility to food or whatnot, it certainly creates greater mental health issues, and it also creates educational issues, the ability to learn and keep pace with others in society. So we continually, through this group and through all the Cass Clay food partners in the area, try to provide good distribution of foods for all those in need, as well as healthy foods. And that extends into all of the community in the ways of market growing, our community gardens, and other ways of having good nutritious foods that we're, fortunate enough here in the Red River Valley, have good land to raise it all on. So that was a very good presentation by the public health. Another one is the way, and this has been going on for a number of years in our community, that there are some nonprofits that are put together to help with new Americans as well as established people in our community come together and work together in community gardens. In that work, they're able to be part of the harvest for their own families, and any excess then goes to food shelters around the area. We were given a presentation by Eric Haig, and he's working through the local immigration and refugee service. And they're over in Fargo. It's unique because it's an area where refugees are, as they're coming into our area, are actually somewhat in a certain area of Fargo, and they've created a new garden over there that all the people engage with, called the Welcome Garden, and it's over somewhere near the area of Walmart over in Fargo on 13th Avenue. The actual garden's on 9th Avenue. Later on, I think many things I've talked about is being on the steering committee, which we meet once a month, but just a reminder on the all this information and recording of the meeting is on the Fargo website under Cass Public Health, and you can see a lot of the information that we talked about. So with that, we'll continue on each of our Fridays as part of this partnership, doing first Fridays, so at 702 Eateries every first Friday of each month. We will continue having our coffee with the commission, which I and Commissioner Preston have done a couple, and the next one will be presented in Moorhead with as a host by Heather Niesmeyer, City Council woman. And our next commission meeting of the whole will be September 13th. The other piece was, as part of my working in adult mental health area with the local advisory committees, one of our people that are active in the group in the adult mental health is a place for hope. And yesterday I spent some time over with the executive director, Daryl Basvick, and Daryl gave me a tour of the place, gave me a behind the scenes look at what this amazing program has done. I forwarded on a report to Steve, and Steve is going to make contact with Daryl. They may talk, and perhaps next week, who knows, or in the near term, we'll have a report that they can kind of show the work they're doing, as well as any requests they have. Works through social services or Rhonda's department, so just know it's integrated in that. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Paul. Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I attended a meeting regarding the transfer station changes with construction engineers and staff from the solid waste department. There are a number of items that we're working on clearing up now that the building is at completion. There's some potential, well, there are change orders as we knew were coming, but we're finalizing the dollars in which those are, and there's some road issues that we need to finish up. But other than that, that concludes that meeting. That afternoon, I attended a discussion regarding using the potential to use funds to create a potential opioid coordinator position in Clay County. We're exploring the possibility for partnerships with other entities. Really feel that using some of the opioid settlement dollars that we received to really have someone embedded in the work would really be the best use fit for that, and certainly collaborating with others could double down the work, and as we know, it's far more than a half-time or quarter-time position, the needs there, so more to come on that report. I attended the Soil and Water Conservation District meeting last week. We did have an oath of office for new supervisor, Richard Menhold. As you recall, he was appointed after it was identified the supervisor that was serving in the capacity did not reside within the district. Richard had served in that capacity previously and is a producer, so he will do a great job. We also met Alyssa Schill, who is the new tech that is working within that group. She will really add to the dynamic and knowledge of the employees there. Excited they were able to fill that position. And there is an offer that they're extending for an additional tech who will work within the district office as well. As you recall, there was a long-term retirement and they're able to piecemeal positions together, so there will be no additional funds requested to that. They did approve the hiring of seasonal help that will help finish scanning office documents. That individual's worked there the past few years and does a great job. I had a legislative update, and good news coming out of session is there's a substantial increase to SWCD aid, so that is really exciting. It's been a long time coming, as Paul is well, Commissioner Krabenoff is well aware. And did talk about the Area 1 meeting and the call for resolutions, and then they're big into tree planting right now, so they are very, very busy. Last week and yesterday, I had long conversations with Holy Cross Township supervisors, just shoring up the agreement as we've been working through on the 150th piece, and there's some language that they're working with our county engineer on the 170th and the minimum maintenance one, just making sure that they had the state aid highway standard language included. And additional items, last week I neglected to report that, as you recall, there had been some delay in the withdrawal management project. The issue was that the project was stuck in the queue at the Department of Labor and Industry permit review. The week prior, we'd only moved up 4 positions. We were at number 24 in the queue. We were really worried about the delay that would cause the project, and substantially then some winter maintenance issues. I was happy to report that we went miraculously from 24 in the queue to 0. So the work that we all did to advocate for change and speeding up that process really did work. So happy to report that. I believe we have a meeting coming up soon, and as you recall, I believe in the agenda there is a groundbreaking scheduled. So excited that we can move forward with that. And then I also reported last week that I was appointed to the Red River Basin Commission. In discussing with our administrator, I'm currently serving, and it's been added to my committee reports, that I'm on the Minnesota Joint Powers Committee. That's already been approved, but now with the change to Red River Basin Commission, Steve advised that we should likely have a board action to appoint me officially to that committee.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
You got a motion second appointed to the Board of Joint Powers. All in favor?
No,
Red River Basin.
Red River Basin,
thank you.
excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
That concludes my reports, Mr. Chair.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On Monday, the 9th, I also attended the meeting regarding trying to wrap up some of the issues regarding the transfer station. A couple of notes to point out. The city of Moorhead did request that we install a new sidewalk that would be on the west side of the building. That was never part of the original plan. They requested that as a safety feature, and after reviewing it, Corey believed that was a good thing. They gave 2 options of just going from one certain area to a certain area, and we've decided to expand that actually a little bit to cover 2 exit entrances out of that building. In addition to that, there were several other items. We've had some trouble with the slippery floor within the citizen drop-off area. We're still trying to come up with there's multiple solutions. One of them is putting in dampers within the current system that's there. We approve that. That will keep the snow from being able to actually get through and come inside and collect on the floor, helping to make it slippery. And there's, as Commissioner Mosier said, there's several other items that we're looking at, and unfortunately, we got to look at what will be our final, probably, weather condition cost. You know, as we knew that was always lagging behind. That number could exceed another $100,000 for those issues. We're working with Lori right now to determine where we are at within our total budget, to make sure that we can fall within line, that our total revenue piece can still cover all of this. So it's going to be very close. And then also that day, I also attended a discussion regarding opioids, and certainly we're interested in, there has been a presentation through ARPA to fund a partial position towards opioid issues. And the reason that it came to ARPA is because of the delay in receiving the opioid dollars, right, Stephen? So it came to ARPA, and as we talked about it, we just felt that this is such a significant issue, and to put somebody in a variable hour position does not do the need justice. And so we talked, and we looked at, collectively looking at other public entities who are receiving opioid dollars and trying to reach out, as Commissioner Mojo said, and to try to see if we can collaborate to get somebody in a full-time position who can coordinate these many different functions that are there. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but there's 4 major criteria that are involved with this. And we believe that that's the best solution to move forward, and we're going to continue to have that dialogue, and more will come to this board. Then on Tuesday the 10th, Wednesday the 10th, we had a budget and finance committee meeting for the RRDC, the Red River Regional Dispatch. We went over the 2022 budget, the 2023 year-to-date budget, and the 2024 draft budget. And the budget committee, and so the way that works is the executive committee, which are the sheriffs and those and fire department, police chiefs, they go through and help Mary establish a preliminary budget. From there, it comes to this newly formed budget committee. And we basically agreed with the budget that was presented, and then that gets forwarded on, and then the full board will vote on that budget in June. Obviously there are some changes to that, which does require an increased contribution on the part of all members. And so more will come on that too as that gets approved. And maybe we can even probably report more on what those numbers are before we would vote in June as the RRDC board. Later that day, I went to Fergus Falls for Lakes Country Service Cooperative meeting. Oh, excuse me. The next day, then I started off with where we did have the the Red River Regional Dispatch Authority Board meeting, and we spent some considerable time reviewing site plans or facility plan up. We got a facility plan update, and because I think we reported before that the site that we had intended on potentially building had about an extra $1 million cost put to it because of needing to remove fill that was there. We've decided to look elsewhere. It was brought before the executive committee and others. There were 3 proposed sites within the city of Fargo. One was the building next to the current county jail site. Another one was at their newly established police station way in South Fargo. Fire station, excuse me, yeah, thank you. Fire station and way South Fargo. And then the third one was next to their public safety building that's in the industrial park. So there was some considerable conversations on there. I think if I recall correctly, the executive committee had recommended that we go with the industrial park site. And so there was so we had some discussion, and that site was chosen. I believe it was a 5-4 vote. I thought it was, but maybe Commissioner Ebringer thinks it might have been 5-3. But anyway, so that's the newly established site that's going to be. Now, obviously, that was still subject to making sure that there's not any other issues there related to contaminated soil or any of that type of thing, but they're pretty confident that because there's already buildings there. And then, of course, then to make sure that there's room for future expansion. And then we also then did talk about the budget meeting, and then I think Commissioner Ebringer then I had to leave before that meeting ended, and so Commissioner Ebringer will probably add to that. And then I ended up in Fergus Falls for the Lakes Country Service Cooperative meeting, and we had that group had hired True North Consulting a year ago to establish a strategic plan for that cooperative over the next 5 years. And so we're 1 year into that now. So we received an update on what has been accomplished through the strategic plan, and moving forward what things would need to be done. And then there was also some information on insurance, health insurance renewals and dental insurance renewals. And I did ask that group, because they're heavily involved with school districts, cities, and counties, that maybe they could expand their role in helping to find solutions to childcare shortages. And so Jeremy Kovash wrote that down and thought that was something really good. And I said, at the very least, they could help monitor what legislation is out there that could help every one of those communities. When I brought that up, they all said they all have the problem. From here all the way to Ross State to Fergus Falls, you name it, Alexandria, they all have the problem. So they're going to look at ways that maybe they can assist in some way as a co-op in the area. So that concludes my report.
Dave? Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 10th, last week, I went to Thief River Falls, attended the Northwest Regional Emergency Communication Board meeting. We discussed problems, and usually with this meeting, I try and avoid getting into the weeds with the technical stuff because I don't get it all. And I don't think we need to second guess our experts, but this is a little technical thing I think we need to be aware of, both in the community and as a commission. There are bidirectional amplifiers that are being put in buildings now. A lot of them are in hospitals, many of them are in schools, in shopping malls, in larger businesses, that will allow police radios and fire and ambulance radios to work inside of these buildings where it might otherwise be blocked off. The Armor system, which is a backbone system that all emergency communications use in the state of Minnesota and in Cass County, North Dakota, has found that when these are put in and they're not properly channelized, they're not honed in on what they need to do, that it interferes with the Armor system to the point where it'll actually make it inoperable in some areas. And they just want to make sure everybody is aware of this, and as we build and start these businesses, and as we build our own buildings and any schools that are coming up, a lot of the contractors are including these BDAs. We need to make sure that they're channelized properly, and we can do that by contacting the emergency communication network with the state. And we want to make sure that anybody that we have contracting for us is aware of this. So that's my public service announcement from that meeting. We passed some motions just to start a new group site in Grand Forks for a radio channel and purchase some encryption capable radios and replacement batteries for the cache radios that are available anytime we have an emergency and we need additional radios. The flood is first thing that comes to mind. But should we have an emergency, there are radios available through the ECN. We just need to contact them to get them. Following that meeting, we had a leadership meeting with state emergency communication official or network officials. Interesting, we looked at a lot of the issues that are impacting on leadership. There were county commissioners there, a couple of sheriffs, and some directors of PSAPs of the dispatch centers in the area. This was for the northwest part of the state. One of the problems we've had is repeated failure to get updates of the 403 statute that controls all the emergency communication networks in the state. It hasn't been adequately updated in over a decade. And with the changes in 911 and in technology, this is really necessary. There are some issues with cell providers who get paid a great deal of money to bring over hardline telephone systems through resources they have to where those calls can be identified by 911 networks. However, there's only 8% of the calls that come in now that are coming in from hardwire. And updating our technology descriptions within the statute would critically limit the revenues that they're making in that area. So that seems to be a point of contention. And we would discuss that. Now, all the districts in the state are going to get together, and I'll be representing Northwest on the discussions about that legislation. On the 11th, I attended with our chairman the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon meeting, which we held at the American Legion, having come over from the VFW. The Veteran Resource Outreach Director from MSUM discussed some of the Veteran Weeks of events that they're planning for MSUM. Had some interesting information from Kurt Cannon, our Veteran Service Officer here in Clay County. He's been very active in getting legislation for disabled vets through in the legislature, and it is moving through the legislature now. It would give 100% disabled veterans relief from some of the DMV expenses, costs of license plates, and auto sales tax. It's not through the legislature yet, but it is making progress. We're hopeful that's going to be able to come through and maybe at some point be extended further than just those that are 100% disabled. Later that day, I also attended the Red River Regional Dispatch Center Board of Authority meeting. Mr. Campbell's done a good job of describing a lot of what we did. There was a review of the architect's report from SEH. The estimates right now are coming in over what we anticipated. Like every other project you get involved in now, it costs more than you thought it would cost 6 months, a year ago. We're at $435 a square foot. And there was some discussion and some direction to the architect and to the dispatch center administration that they need to go back and look at maybe a little more value engineering. This is important for the overall cost, but under the agreement we have, triple RDC, the cost for Moorhead and Clay County is already settled, and we don't anticipate any increase in that for our costs. Then the discussion opened on public safety site. Both Cass County and Fargo were very generous in offering land for this project after our original site became undesirable because of additional costs. The final decision, I think, at least on my part, I think with a lot of the other folks who voted, was that we went with the executive board's input. And there were definite benefits in the Cass County site, but that was, there were definite problems and advantages to go with the Fargo site, which we ultimately selected out by their public safety building. So barring any surprises on that, we will proceed with that site as the one chosen. We reviewed the budget that was forwarded from the Finance Committee, and that will be addressed here probably within the next 2 months.
June it has to be.
June. So we'll have some final information here shortly. And then we did discuss, and we passed a motion involving the fiscal agent responsibilities within the dispatch center. It has been City of Fargo for years. It is about to become the Cass County. Will represent the entire triple RDC as fiscal agent. However, that's got to be delayed until the 1st of next year because Cass County's making a transition into a new accounting program. So we passed the motion to keep Fargo on as fiscal agent until January 1 next year.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Everett, can I just make a comment on, while we're on the triple RDC? You know, the preliminary budget that was passed forward, what it amounts to in terms of the cost share by entity, I believe the increase amount that is being projected for Clay County is around $24,000 a year for 2024. And I think this would be a good opportunity maybe to, you know, have Commissioner and I and Steve and maybe get the sheriff to start having preliminary conversations regarding our partners in our shared costs. As we had the last meeting of the small cities meeting, Jeremy Cassette from the city administrator from Barnesville had requested that he wanted to be part of that process. And so I think maybe what we should do is to sit down, you know, Commissioner Ebring and I, being on that triple RDC, and the sheriff and maybe yourself, Steve, and maybe to start plan on the process for, because all of these, we end up having contracts with these communities. And to have them partake in what's going on, I think would be a good thing up front. But so maybe we can work together and establish a timeline to bring these other entities who share in that cost with us to have that dialogue. If that's all right, maybe we could have Steve arrange to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Last item I have occurred yesterday. State Emergency Communication Network and their staff held the first of three regional meetings at MSUM yesterday to include leadership from the radio boards and appropriate GIS and IT professionals. Mark Sloan was there and represented the county very well. He has a lot of knowledge about the GIS needs, having worked on this before with the transition to New World for the triple RDC. Excuse me. It was an all-day meeting. We discussed some of the challenges we're looking at in transitioning to next generation 911. The interesting part of this for the general public is, right now, we have text to 911 all over the state. We've accomplished that. That is just the first step. There's going to be video streaming capacity, not in the immediate future, but soon. There's going to be, as we move further and further away from landlines being any source at all. Right now, it's almost tied with VoIP. You've got 85% of the calls that are received by 911 centers in the state are from wireless sources, 7% from VoIP and 8% from hard lines. So we've got to move forward with the technology, and not just in the statute, but in the ability to pay for this and the ability to have the equipment necessary to be interoperable between dispatch centers and even setting up backup centers when it's necessary. This is one of the things we're looking at with the triple RDC, is selecting a backup site. Well, there's a lot of different options that the new technology allows. And Mary Philippi from the triple RDC was there as well. It was a good meeting. It was very technical and it was long, but I think we came away with a lot of information we needed. And we'll continue to work on that. And that completes my presentation.
In my meetings this week, last Tuesday, I went to the Spring Prairie Township, Spring Prairie. Justin and I both went out there and talked to them about the closing of 70th Avenue North, which the trucks have pretty much dismantled that road. The rocks are coming through the road and damaging our motorboards on the graders. So we closed the road now. I don't know when it'll be reopened. I guess when we can finally get that road repaired and, get enough gravel on there. I know there's plans to pave it, but they're waiting for funds to do that. So, and Spring Prairie agreed with the closure. From there, Justin and I went over to Riverton Township and talked about the roads and stuff and ditches and what have you. They didn't seem to have any problems at all. I just want to thank Justin for going along to these meetings with me, because most of the discussion a lot of times is on roads and stuff. So it's really been a big help. Thursday morning, beyond the yellow ribbon, there again, Dave's already given us a report on that. But I know that bill that's for veterans for getting licenses and stuff like that, they make that a part of the transportation bill. So it was a bill on its own, I guess, but they included it on the transportation bill now. Other than that, I guess at the Red Hawks, there's going to be a Veterans Day, and also May 25th at Bonanzaville, the veterans will have things. And also, if you got some lawnmowers that aren't being used anymore, there's a Navy vet that works on lawnmowers and gives them to veterans. So if you need a place to get rid of your lawnmower, I think you can contact Tim Haugen at the American Legion or Moorhead, and he'll send you to the right guy. After that, I had a SHAC meeting. Wayne Johnson, our executive committee guy, was not able to attend. I attended for him. Working on what from home, discussion was held on working from home and where the public acceptance of that, and there's some for it and some against it, I guess, It all depends how it's controlled by the supervisors. They're looking for a work group representative from each region to start and find a work group for SHAC. I thought we had a personal opinion, so we had enough representatives already, but they're looking to start another work group. And they finally came up with a mission statement, a seamless, responsive, publicly supported public health system that works closely with the community to ensure healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. So now I know what the committee's about. Monday morning, I had a AMC, I attended part of the AMC update, which is held, I think they're holding those, I think, every other week or something like that. Attended part of that. I had to leave for a doctor's appointment. Last night, I went to the sheriff's department spaghetti feed. They had a good, nice crowd there, over 50, 60 people there. Nice crowd for a good meal. After that, I went to Keene Township and discussed some of their problems. I know one of the guys that came in at the township meeting, he brought in 12 beaver tails. They're paying $50 for beavers up there, so it's there's some problems up there with beavers, and it's part of the township. So it's interesting to see that many beavers up there. And it's just and they got road problems there too, but they're getting them fixed up too. We're working on that. So those are my meetings. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, I participated in the update on the resource recovery, the schedule that's been addressed. I also participated in the opioid collaboration discussion that's also been addressed. On the 10th, we had county management. We talked about the impact of some of the legislative bills. At last board meeting, Commissioner Campbell asked about the impact of a potential federal shutdown and where those would be impacted. We did have discussion that public health, social services, and the Juvenile Center National School Lunch Program would have some impact, at least from the front funding piece. It wouldn't impact their ability to provide service. And in previous shutdowns, they've just been reimbursed after the fact. So those were the three areas that we discussed with that concern. We talked about the 2024 budget. As part of our intergovernmental retreat here on campus, they're going to be reestablishing the supervisor meetings as far as communication standpoint and getting information to our staff at the end of this month. We also, with MCIT being here last week, that was an opportunity to get a reminder out for everyone to relook at their schedules and make sure that everything's covered. We did set an employee appreciation picnic date of June 27th. That's a Tuesday. It'll be held after the board meeting. And so we'll be getting that information out to all of our employees. Looking forward. That's always a fun day. And right now we're looking at holding the same location as we have had in previous years. That afternoon I met with Robert Wilson from Cass County, their administrator. We talked about different shared issues, the dispatch facility, which has been discussed, staffing challenges, and also budgets. On the 11th, I attended the authority board meeting virtually in regard to the dispatch center. That's been addressed. I appreciate Commissioner Campbell's response to the contracts. I have asked. Our contracts are up at the end of this year with our rural cities, and so it would be a great time to have that meeting. So I'll work with you in finding of your availabilities and then get that out this week. On Thursday and Friday of last week, I participated in the Future Task Force through AMC. Again, I appreciate the board's willingness to allow me to participate there. We had some really good presentations on cannabis legalization from Mary Lyon from AMC. That's been her sole focus this year with the passing of House File 100 and Senate File 73. That's now at committee, and they're trying to blend those two bills together. The Senate file certainly has a number of things that are much more beneficial to us that would include local control, which would allow some registration fees, some oversight from public health, and also land use guidelines. It also includes revenue sharing. The amount of which a citizen could have is a little bit lower in the Senate bill, for example. Right now, the House file has that a citizen could grow 8 plants and have 5 pounds of marijuana. Just to put that in context, that has a street value of between $15,000 and $20,000. And so we'll have a better idea of where they end up settling in the near future. What we did ask AMC from a technical standpoint, they're always helpful to us. Again, making sure that there's clarification of what the role of the counties are going to be versus the role of the cities. We also talked about providing potentially a handbook for county ordinances that would be beneficial, specifically with our planning and zoning departments. And so more to come on that. We also heard a presentation from Bridging Divides, the Office of Collaboration and Dispute Resolution. They're working with the Minnesota Association of County Administrators on implementing their strategic plan. They also talked about the challenges of Matt Hilgarth actually came directly from a negotiation with the authors of the cannabis bills. And one of the things that we kind of talked about, along with a lot of the new legislators, one of the things that was pointed out is a lot of those new legislators have never served in any other capacity, such as school boards, county boards, city councils. And so that's kind of been an interesting challenge as they've moved forward with some of these bills discussions. The next day, we received a presentation from Dave Bartholomew. He is going to be providing a presentation on leadership at all of the district meetings coming up in June. Ours is going to be June 16th, as we've highlighted in Fergus Falls. And so he presented that just to kind of give looking for some insight to make sure he was hitting the mark. And then we also had a presentation on energy policies and issues in Minnesota, specifically regarding the 2040 clean energy legislation that's been passed. We heard a presentation from Ken Smith, the CEO of Evergreen Energy. St. Paul has an energy district that they're responsible for that heats and cools over 200 businesses and over 300 single-family homes with renewable energy. And so it was a very interesting presentation of how they utilize that renewable energy. And so we'll probably be seeing some more of those things in that presentation potentially at AMC trainings in the future. On Friday, also had multiple conversations with the Morehead Center Mall in regards to the forum article that came out. I do just want to clarify that we do have a contract with the Morehead Center Mall and Roars that goes through November 31st. That article did not pertain to our lease, and so I just wanted to be clear with that. Yesterday, participated with Matt Jacobson at our kickoff meeting for our development code with SRF. We kind of looked at the scope of work. They're anticipating it's going to be about a 12-month process. They'll be looking to have an oversight of establishing a committee to help with that. And so Matt will be working on that. We're looking at engaging the townships. One of the things that was suggested at the meeting yesterday is rather than have meetings like we did with our transportation plan, maybe we connect that with the township meetings if they're okay with that, and that way we would have an active group that could provide some feedback there. And so that more to come there. Matt will be probably coming next week just to kind of provide a more detailed oversight, as that is something that he promised you once you agreed to this, the contract. Let's see. We had some additional budget discussions with Lori yesterday. Again, I worked with the citizen concern that was brought forward with Auditor Treasurer, Planning, Zoning, and also Environmental Services yesterday. Just of note, we'll be making the adjustment to our future meetings. The Board of Adjustments is June 13th. We have a board meeting at 5 o'clock. The Board of Appeal and Equalization will be at 6:30, is what the board has decided. I did share that the letter to DHS in regards to the fingerprint and the governor's office and legislators did go out at the end of last week. And also next week, we will be having an opportunity to sign a proclamation in support of our EMT and fire department. If you recall, our joint powers, which is now the intergovernmental group, has a press conference each year, and so there'll be more information coming out on that next week. So with that concludes my report.
Brian, you got anything? Thank you for being at our meetings. Nice to have you available. Jackie, you did good in the budget there. I mean, timing, very close. Thank you very much. Okay, we're adjourned. Oops, no, we're not adjourned yet.
That's okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for that letter you sent out. I thought staff and you wrote a very good letter regarding the fingerprinting need and the urgency of it. I hope it makes the point.
I think it was a good collaboration between the city and our board and also our social service department.
Yes, I've been getting several emails on that. Okay. Now we're adjourned.